Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Hulst back again with another E-commerce Conversations. I hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of this little mini table, Mike
me. Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me on the other side of this little glass table.
Oh my God, it's so little. We're here in Austin. We're actually at a little retreat, like a content creator retreat. But Mike is also, well, he is the founder. I assume the founder.
Founder, owner. Yeah. Small little operation that primarily sells holsters, actually, on the internet.
The last line of defense.
Last line of defense, yeah. So LLOD.us is the site, and I've been on a handful of podcasts, but never for the e-commerce aspect of it, never for my holster business. I am kind of a weird entity in that I'm mostly known for a YouTube channel that I have. You know, I do gear and adventure and stuff like that. But on the side, I also have a little holster company that I developed basically at the same time I started my YouTube channel. I started selling holsters, and that's probably primarily what we're talking about today.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously with a show name like E-commerce Conversations, we're going to have a conversation about e-commerce. I feel like, you know, your business model is probably pretty similar to the Beard Brand business model, right? Where the majority of your customers are coming in through YouTube. Are you doing any kind of like outside acquisition?
No, really, it's a super small operation right now, and I kind of want to scale it eventually at some point where my life slows down a little bit. Super busy personally with some things, but it started, I'll give you a little bit of the origin story, maybe. So I was looking to buy a holster for concealed carry, and there was just nothing good on the market. So I actually just hopped on YouTube, figured out how to make a holster, started making holsters for myself that were done in a fashion that nobody else was selling at the time.
Just like out of your home? Or
yeah, just out of my home.
They're like plastic. You like heat them up and melt them to the shape of your gun.
Pretty much, yes. They're plastic. It's technically, the material is called Kydex. It's a thermoform material. So sold in thin sheets, you heat it up, and then I vacuum form it now. Originally, it was like a foam pressure form. Like that's kind of the DIY hobbyist version of it. So learned how to do that, bought some materials, and made a couple for myself. At about the same time, I was starting YouTube, kind of like gear reviews and stuff. And I would mention like, oh, this is a holster I made for myself, but I would talk about it in the context of other things. And I had people that wanted to buy it. And they're like, can I buy it? And I was like, this is just one I made for myself.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, were they different than anything else on the marketplace?
They were different. Yeah, entirely unique in the space. But again, I never had the intention of selling them. Mm-hmm. Just, this is what I'm making for myself. And then there was some requests for them. But yeah, nothing else like it on the market at the time. Now there's quite a few on it. And they didn't, I'm not saying they copied me or anything. There was a lot of garage kind of holster manufacturers at the time, all kind of innovating and everything. But there was nothing like it at the time, which is why people wanted to buy it. And then very early on, I was like, okay, just PayPal me some money and let me know your address and what you're looking for. And it was that way probably for the first year, just a very discombobulated email me and PayPal
like almost
me.
Like a distraction from your core business.
It was, and I mean, it still kind of remains that way, but we'll kind of get into that. But my background is actually as a back-end developer, so I was a web developer. Oddly enough, I was like, I'm not trying to make this the thing, like make a website and process transactions and get a sales tax ID. I was just kind of, I'll just do this on the side until it goes away.
Yeah,
and it didn't really go away. And then I was like, well, it was a single man operation, building the holsters, taking the transactions, making it, doing all the stuff, replying to the emails. And I was like, this is very distracting I had a full-time job again as a developer. I was trying to start this YouTube channel and I was selling holsters through emails, through PayPal. Really weird. So I was just like, I'll make a website. And I'm a PHP developer. And I was primarily working in a platform called Drupal. And Drupal has kind of an e-commerce attachment. Multiples, really. One called UberCart, one called Drupal-powered. So
Which one did you go with?
Originally, I built a site on Drupal-powered.
Okay, good, because I've had that founder on the show.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So Drupal-powered is a superior platform than UberCart. UberCart kind of got phased out. And so I made that. But it was kind of clunky, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless they were like a Drupal developer, like what I was trying to do. And I was working with a bunch of different attributes. There's basically, you selected a firearm, and then you color right-handedness, left-handedness, light attachment. There's a lot of stuff. Some of them affect the price. And so I toyed around with a few things, Shopify, BigCommerce, and without being super familiar with those platforms, I was like, I can't quite get it to do what I want it to do, but I'm a Drupal developer and I know I can get it to do what I want it to do. So I built it in Drupal originally and then started doing transactions through the Drupal e-commerce site that I built. And it was a lot, I did some custom module development and stuff because I wanted things to work a certain way. But I didn't really, again, it was kind of a patchwork solution in a sense. I was like, let me just scramble to get a website up so I'm not literally having an email back and forth with a person to
build some automation in this.
Yeah.
You can check out your own dang product.
Yeah. You don't need to email me, just go through the checkout process and buy it. So I got that all set up and was kind of at the time on YouTube still kind of in that firearms vein. So I was getting some just natural marketing through my own YouTube channel, but still to this day have not done any more traditional marketing. I haven't sent holsters out for reviews. I haven't bought ads. I've never worked in Facebook ads or anything, but I have talked to a lot of other holster manufacturers who have. And as you can imagine, in the firearm world, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And even with e-commerce platforms, it's difficult.
Can you talk about why it's difficult? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious for someone like me, but...
Yeah, so in the world of firearms, they obviously fall into like a weapon category. So I don't sell firearms. I don't even sell like firearm attachments or accessories. I literally sell a thing that a firearm can go into. But...
I mean... Firearms can go into pants. So if you're selling pants, then,
It could. So a lot of it has to do with your imagery that you're using for marketing. As you can imagine, I kind of got to show at least some firearms with holsters because they're very related. And then also with wording, if I'm selling a Glock holster, I need to say this is a Glock holster, and Glock is probably in some flagged keyword of we don't like this in advertising or something like that. So it becomes very tricky for advertisements who are very sensitive to firearms or weapons in general. And even furthermore, like I didn't build it on like Shopify, for instance, because even though technically it is a product that I can sell, it doesn't go against any of their terms. It falls into an area that could be kind of gray.
Yeah, well, not yet, right? I mean,
it could change.
We're on Shopify. I'm a big fan of Shopify, and for our brand, it works great. But there was probably about 2 years ago that they went through and deplatformed some people for political reasons, and
quite a few. Yeah, I knew a few of them, and then just like. One day they had a fully functioning operational e-commerce site, and the next day they were siteless.
Yeah.
And that was kind of scary for me. So even though I could whip up a Shopify site pretty easy and tons of advantages and pros for using Shopify, just API integrations galore. If I wanted to, resell this or work with a drop shipper or whatever, Shopify is a great platform for that. So in some ways, Drupal has been limiting for some of that. I'll work with like a belt manufacturer that I was having them drop ship for me. And I basically just had to write up a script that fired off like an email order transaction to them that they were fulfilling. And as they grew as a company, they're like, we can't do this anymore. You really need to get this Shopify plugin.
Get
and I was like, yeah. I don't have the time to develop an API that's going to work with that through Drupal. So I kind of had to nix that relationship. And there's been some things like this through the process where the platform was a little limiting for some of the stuff I had to do. While it was very good at the customizations I wanted to do and how I wanted the checkout experience to go and everything, it was limiting in some of those, largely API related interactions with other platforms. So that aspect has been kind of a struggle. And then this is more just general business direction. I have not promoted it much. So it came from a kind of self-promoted holster company that I was never really trying to grow. Again, it was like, this is kind of an annoyance, but it's here. And then it started generating more and more money. It went from grossing, 50,000 or whatever the first year to 100,000 to 200,000 to 300,000 to 400,000 to 500,000. It kind of just kept growing organically.
Yeah.
Even though I was doing nothing.
I mean, that's like every entrepreneur's dream is like, I'm doing nothing and my business is growing. It's but I mean, like, as a total percentage of your revenue, like, is it, so small where it's like 10% and then it's not worth the hassle? Or does it make up a significant part where you should be starting to think about how you could dedicate more resources to it to kind of scale it and make it the primary driver of your business?
Yeah. So an interesting thing happened this year, actually, is the first year that my revenue will be lower without doing still never done any marketing. And it's kind of the content I create on YouTube now is somewhat distant from what it originally was. So where I could get more organic marketing from my own holster company because I was doing more videos in that realm. Now I'm not doing any. So now I have zero marketing. So my marketing went from, at least I'm marketing myself on YouTube once every 20 videos or something. Now it's never. So now it's really only recurring business and a tiny little bit of SEO. But now in the last 5 years, the holster business has grown in general. The industry has grown. So there's a lot more competition, and they're all, as you can imagine, spending marketing dollars and doing their own initiatives and growing and running sales and Black Friday sale and this and developing new models. And you kind of have to be relevant in the industry, with every industry, but with holsters especially. There are new models of weapon lights. There are new models of guns released every year. So I have this whole other aspect. And now I'm not making holsters anymore myself. I have contractors that are doing this. And I have, my brother actually does custom CAD design and CNCs these custom molds and everything. But a lot of that is a lot of R&D. So it's choosing which models are going to be the emergent, dominant models that I have to make them for and keeping up to date with that. So I'll get requests all the time. New gun comes out. Are you making holsters for this? And I'm like, that represents many hours of R&D and development and testing, and I don't have time for it right now, and I haven't offloaded that more specific. I'm still involved with the holster company, even if I'm not making the holsters. I'm still involved in a lot of the R&D stuff and the development and stuff.
Well, real quickly, like I would imagine for like an established gun, like a 1911, or I'm not a gun guy, so it's like the ones that have been around for 100 years. I would imagine it's very competitive in the holster category, right? So where you can have a competitive advantage is if you can develop the holster super quick for these new guns.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. There's been actually the Glock 19 has been the main concealed carry gun for a lot of years, and I made them for the most popular models. And the most popular models were relatively stagnant. And just within the last 2 years, there's been a bunch of new guns come out on the market. And within the last 2 years is when I have been generating more income through my other endeavors. And so the dollar per hour investment of developing new molds and stuff hasn't really been there. So I've let the company get a little stagnant, not in that I don't make an excellent product and have excellent customer service. I just simply have not been developing the new models. So as somebody gets a new gun model, they're like, hey, are you going to make a holster for this? I'm like, probably not anytime soon. So they get a holster from someone else. And then I lose them as a customer, which sucks. And so that's my own fault. Nobody to blame but myself for that. And I'm coming to kind of a crossroads here pretty soon where I need to just invest more time to kind of keep this, again, we talked about earlier, it just grew naturally. It's just, I got lucky And every e-commerce guy's dream to put in no effort, just make a solid product and get rewarded for making a solid product, basically. But again, getting stagnant now, I'm going to have to invest more time and resources into developing for the new models. And since I'm not doing any marketing on my own channel, actually looking at more traditional marketing methods or work with other influencers or just plug myself more on my own content.
Well, it's kind of an interesting dilemma that you're at, because I feel like whenever you come to a crossroads, it gives you an opportunity to evaluate the direction you want to go. And, for us, a 10-year anniversary was a big milestone for us where we evaluated the next 10 years. And, the question is, like, if your other parts of the business have grown, how much of this will take away from those opportunities to growth? Because there's always opportunity cost. And does it make sense to, sell it to your brother, you said, or sell it to somebody who works there, or, even put it on the market? And then that way you can still focus on your core business and not be distracted by.
Yeah, it's an option for sure. And I've put, a great deal of thought into this. And I don't want to let it go. I would love to grow it, actually. It's interesting to me. I really enjoy the manufacturing process. I'd like to expand it beyond holsters.
Okay.
I'd like to just get into more general gear manufacturing in general. Maybe I want to make a cool pouch, or maybe I want to solve this problem. And I've done a lot of that with just CAD design and 3D printing some random stuff for my own use.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this cup holder doesn't quite work right, so I'll CAD it up and 3D print it for my own personal use. But there's a lot of things like that. Like even the holster itself came up from, this is lacking in the industry. Let me just make it for myself, and then eventually other people wanted to buy it. So I'd love to get into manufacturing in general, and probably loosely related to what I'm doing with the holster business right now. So I kind of want to keep it. I don't want to kill it off, and I just want to expand it. Really, it's just.
Do these exist in the marketplace? Like, because you're a big Toyota guy too, a big overlander on the road, like to have like a custom holster that would fit into a Tacoma and then it would fit a certain kind of gun. Is that something that exists as well, or?
Yeah, they exist in some fashion, but nothing that I would want to use myself. So there's problems like that where basically there are subpar solutions that you can use for specific applications like that. And you have to figure out, is this too niche of a product, or is this mass market, or do I want to capitalize on it being such a niche market? Even though it's not huge, I'll be the only one in the space.
Right.
Versus, do I want to develop a product that has more mass market and have more competitors and everything like that? So that's the constant struggle in manufacturing, really for any business. How big a pool do I want to try and get after?
Yeah.
And it's the same with me. And it's, again, one of those things where it comes down to time. I just haven't carved out the time or the thought process or the energy to figure out what part of what markets I want to try and capture. But I really do. To get a little personal, I'm building a house right now. So I decided to build my own house, be the general contractor, actually building it. I run the YouTube channel. I have a baby coming in January. So over the next handful of months are just the busiest months of my life so far. So I've kind of just said, I'm going to keep the holster company going, again, make a great product, continue fulfilling orders, but not make any new stuff in the holster world. But 2023, I keep saying, 2023 is the year where I'm going to invest into it. And my brother actually is he was a developer, and now he's like a technical sales consultant for a big company. And he wants to help. He wants to hey, let's make this holster empire a thing.
Well, what you're saying is very interesting from two perspectives. One, from the case that if you have a lot of projects, it makes sense to prioritize. Like obviously, you prioritize family and building a house for your family and welcoming a new baby to your home. I think like that makes sense. But also, no offense, but if you're a competitor to Mike, you're like, he's going on autopilot. Like this is my opportunity to hit the market and, acquire customers. Not to encourage anybody to do that. But I'm just saying, like, when you think about your business, you think about like, what is the opportunity? And sometimes the opportunity is just, I'm willing to focus on it. Mm-hmm. Because for a lot of people, sometimes your competitors, they have other things going on, and your pure focus and your energy is going to help elevate it and set it to a different level. Now, I think like you talked about, you can scale up and still have that energy go into the holster company where you're not pausing it, but you can't do it. You have to find someone that.
Yeah. And that's the hardest thing, finding. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people that are successful in business obviously find someone that does something that they need done better than them, or that they don't have time to do, or whatever. And we've discussed this here on this little retreat kind of, but that's the thing, is it's the constant struggle of like, I think I can do this and I think I can do it pretty well. I just need an extra 3 hours a week to throw at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got to find that 3 hours a week. And then, another week goes by and you didn't find that 3 hours a week. And another week goes by and you didn't find it. So I think I need to just set myself some deadlines and some goals and actually just carve out the time. And I find that if I don't make the time, then I never have the time.
Right.
But if I make it, I have it because I carved it out.
I mean, but the reality also is true. Like as much as it's really about prioritizing. So it becomes more of a priority than something else. So if you make the time, you'll have it. Where do you think the potential, because it's to me, it's still like kind of in that infancy, like it feels like you've got a ton of potential with the brand. You talk about growing beyond the holster. I feel like once you do that, that really opens up your world because you unleash a couple of handcuffs from like a marketing perspective with your products. I don't know how much they ding you if you sell like kind of both side by side or.
Yeah, it's another tough and interesting conversation to have if I want to get into developing things that are not at all related to firearms. Like I said earlier, a cup holder for a Tacoma or something like that. Do I split off the brand at that point? Or do I try to wrap it all under the umbrella? Because right now I'm linked branding. Like my YouTube channel is called Last Line of Defense. My holster company is also we're one and the same essentially. But so if you want to buy some of my YouTube merch, it's the same logo as my holster company. It's like the same. We're one big thing. Yeah. And that was a poor decision.
I don't think so. I mean, we're a beard brand. That's our YouTube channel, and that's our product company as well. So I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think the challenge in that is, does your company have core values and does it have a mission?
No, it doesn't. I'm not necessarily the model to follow for anyone, obviously. Yeah. It's a very unique path I have that led me here, is one that I just kind of fell into by accident. If anything, and I've talked about this with friends and family and other business owners that I've talked to, where all signs point to my company should be dead. Yeah. Like it shouldn't have even made it to where it is today because I've done essentially everything wrong. So there's probably
clearly not, but
not everything wrong.
Right.
Not everything wrong, but definitely I didn't take a stereotypical approach to building a business. It was one that kind of, in essence, built itself, and then I supported its growth in some sense. So yeah, core values, goal. I don't have a 10-year goal or a 5-year goal or anything like that, honestly.
Well, I mean, I think, so the name's Last Line of Defense, and, like you think about the mission and the purpose and like, helping your customers build that last line of defense.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? Obviously, from a gun perspective, that makes a lot of sense, but also from like being prepared to handle adversity. Mm-hmm. And, what does that mean? When you think about being able to be prepared to handle adversity, you can think about like the mental fortitude. So you can think about products that help with that. You can think about like health and fitness. You can think about like, obviously like prepper type of things and like preparing for those events where you are the last line of defense. So it does give you a larger umbrella of products and opportunities.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I could get into and a lot of stuff I'm interested in. And even my channel's direction, even though I'm kind of known in like the off-road overland space, general outdoor guy, the house I'm building is going to be a homestead. I want to be more self-sufficient. I'm very interested in all things preparedness and being your own last line of defense and not being reliant on other things. So yeah, I could really expand, and I would love to expand into like just general preparedness, whether that's selling, maybe I custom design a medical kit or a pouch that works perfectly in a Tacoma or something carrying medical gear, or whether it's just more homestead type self-reliance stuff, or it's it's a multi-tool that I love, or a flashlight that I want to develop. All of these things, it all falls under the quote unquote last line of defense umbrella, or the preparedness umbrella. So there is so much I would love to do with the holster company that doesn't necessarily clash with the direction I've gone with my YouTube channel. It's just either hiring someone to help manage that, or deciding, do I want to hire someone to help manage the YouTube side of thing, or hire an editor, or do whatever, and then I can spend more time on the product development side. And at some point in the near future, I'm gonna.
What do you enjoy more?
I enjoy it all. Is the thing. Like, I really like product development. I really like solving problems, developing a physical product that is a solution to something, and I really enjoy educating. Like, not in the e-commerce space typically, but just in the preparedness, outdoor adventure type space. And I love to create content. So I don't know. It's like super tough to try and figure out what I would love to keep the reins on versus where I should hire someone to help.
I mean, I'll tell you from my perspective, I think there's elements of things that you kind of hand off, or at least I've handed off. Like, I don't like to edit, but I do like to produce content. So being able to record and capture the moments, but being able to work with people who love the production aspect of it. So you're still delivering that information, and there's always growth pains as they learn your style and what works, what doesn't work. But the same is kind of true with product development, where you brainstorm, you come up with the ideas, but then you let someone work through the prototypes and bringing in the samples and kind of like the management of the product development aspect that takes a lot of time and energy, but doesn't really require your creative needs. And then when it comes in, you test it and you give the feedback and you make the iteration. So finding someone in either of those cases could help you. And it could even be like hire 2 part-time people, which is essentially like 1 full-time person. And then that's kind of how they focus.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of those mundane things that I don't necessarily have a passion for editing my own videos.
Right.
I don't have a passion for going through multiple iterations of R&D, like milling prototypes. Like, I don't really have that kind of passion. So there are simple steps I could take to alleviate some of that. It's just, I think a struggle that most people go through is the initial spin up of finding the right editor, or finding the right CNC operator, or whatever, that's just been kind of holding me back, I think.
Yeah. Have you implemented any kind of hiring process?
No, not really. Currently, my wife actually works for the holster company, handling a lot of the shipping and operations and assembly of some of the stuff, the final stages before holsters actually go out the door, as well as like shipping some merchandise and stuff. And other than that, I just have a few contractors working for me that are friends or friends of friends that had, time and interest. And so I haven't gone through any hiring process for people that would have an expertise in an area that I need help with.
I mean, this is probably a longer conversation than we have time for, but a key element in the growth of our business was we hired wrong for probably like 18 months, held the business back for 18 months.
Okay.
And it wasn't until it was like a giant cluster that we realized we needed to do something different. And there's this hiring process called top grading. So long story short is basically you ask for references at every stage of the interview process. And then you ask questions in regards to how the reference is going to reply to these questions. And then you do the reference check.
Okay.
And that's a really good way of kind of like filtering out the C and D players. And you kind of left with like the B and A candidates who can have a positive reference. And
interesting. So you actually follow up.
We actually do reference checks, So
that's good. I always thought that's the way to go.
It's a great truth serum as well, because it's like when I call up this reference and ask them, what areas that you could improve upon, what are they going to say?
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, we're going to be calling them, just a heads up, we're going to be calling them. What are they going to say? Because if they lie, then that's also a red flag too. And they'll be like, oh yeah, I came to work every single day early. And I'll be like, okay, they said they came to work every day early. Is that true? And it's like, yes or no. So you're able to kind of validate and verify the things that they say.
So you saw a noticeable improvement when you implemented that?
Yeah. And, from a hiring perspective, you're never going to have like 100% hit rate. But this moved it from like a, 50-50 or maybe even like 20% hit rate to like a 70, 80, 90. And not only that, I think the problem that we now have is like, we'll have someone, the process is so good, we kind of know what they'll be good at and what they won't be good at. And then we'll be like, oh yeah, we can kind of work with them or work around that issue. And the thing that we've learned is like, unless you're super excited to bring someone on, like I can't wait for this person to start tomorrow, don't hire them.
Okay.
Like if you have any kind of reservations at all, those will come true.
That's good advice.
Not always, but like with this process, because you're so thorough, you pretty much know everything about them. And stick to your guys. Like, I kind of got reservations. Just, it's okay to move on. And just the whole hire slow and fire fast is so true.
Yeah. Yeah. You have less turnover. You're making sure they're a better fit for the business. And yeah. That makes sense. I'll call all the references when I get into that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you more offline. Where can people watch your YouTube videos, support you? I mean, you kind of talked about it earlier.
Yeah, so you could just Google Last Line of Defense and I'll just probably pop up for the first handful of results. But yeah, Last Line of Defense on YouTube and then just one word, Last Line of Defense on Instagram. And then all of that is available and accessible through my website, which is just llod.us.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for coming by the podcast. This has been another e-commerce conversations. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And hopefully you got a nugget or two. A little nugget of information in your brain.
Hopefully.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Cheers. And keep on growing.